Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today is my usual roundup, reflections, catch up of the month of September. September was a much steadier month in terms of just life in general for me. Most of it was very emotionally balanced, and I spent a lot of time with family, I would say, especially my brother in the month of September, because towards the latter part he actually went off to uni, which is awesome for him. I was very excited, but you know, sad to not have another of my siblings in close proximity, I guess, or somewhat close proximity. It was just a really nice month. Every month has its downs as well as its ups, but I think apart from the end of the month, I had a really enjoyable time, and I received what feels like a lot of gifts actually. I'm not complaining, of course, just feeling awkwardly spoiled, I guess, is the best way to describe it. I'm not the best person at receiving gifts. Just because I feel like to receive a gift I should really be doing something in return, and of course that's not always possible, plausible, or not always what the gift giver wants either. But I have some lovely things to show you. Some of them were birthday presents because of course in the end of August I celebrated my birthday, and some of them were gifts for gifts' sake as well. All of them are very much appreciated. I think I'll probably summarise my month as I go along and show you stuff this time around, because it's going to be easier for me to weave the month's story that way, and because, as I say, the middle bulk of the month was really enjoyable. Work ticked along in my private practice very well. I've been doing my animal medicine monthly email mail outs, and they've been really well received, so I'm so grateful for those. I started prepping and getting one of my Halloween readings up on my website as well for my tarot biz, separate from my other private biz, but I do run them both. And yeah, a lot of cogs in the work, a lot of family stuff, a lot of just tinkering away with things that probably aren't particularly eventful for you to listen to, but of course there's nothing like some gentle stability to bring, at least for me, that feeling of calm and safety back into the mix. I did have a hospital appointment with another MRI, which I am counting MRIs in double figures now, but I'm not going to bore you with that. I had it done. I'm waiting on further results. You know, these chronic conditions, they don't go away. I don't wish to bore everyone every month, but needless to say, overall, nice month. So let's get into some of the stuff that I have to share with you. I had two main decks that I worked with significantly for my own personal readings, some of which were on Instagram, some weren't, in the month of September. This one is Tarot of the Pagan Cats. I think I ended up working with this because I kept going out of the house to visit people, and because of that, this one gets chucked in my car quite a lot. I have a backup of this one, which I didn't intentionally get, but I have kept it because I freaking love this deck. It's just really blissfully easy to read with. I love cats, and the artwork was giving me something quite familiar, and I can't think of the term that I'm looking for. Sort of that younger nostalgia and my connection with cats, because at the beginning of the month I was sharing this continuing sense of apathy for social media as a whole, YouTube, Instagram, and expressing the desire not to force things, to sort of reflect on my experience and what I wanted from it. It was actually really helpful, and by just following the process, I feel like I've started rerouting in my ideas. I don't feel like my expectations were necessarily unrealistic, because for me, there is no social media without the social interaction, and sometimes whilst pleasantries and niceties and likes are shared, what I'm really craving is the deeper conversation and the connection over the more quick hit of getting a like or something like that. But anyway, I wrote it out, I discussed it. It opened some really interesting conversations with a few of my close friends who I've met through social media. So I'm definitely thankful for social media, but more was running a commentary on my experience of how it's changed, as well as some of my friends who have fed back similar, and kind of how it was becoming more of a collective experience. But it did shift, at least a part of it shifted, and I had some more space away from it as well. The other deck that was a really solid reader and a really emotional reader for me actually is my Tarot of the Hidden Realm. I know that you guys have seen a lot of this. I don't usually bring what my decks are in, but some of my decks are in really interesting things, so I figured you could see where it sits. This is a really, really old piece of Palo Santo that I had from a long time ago now, that has just sat in here and infused this whole deck of its scent, which is pretty amazing. I know the discussions that are going around about various herbs and tools and woods and things like that being harvested, so I'm very aware as well. But back to the Tarot of the Hidden Realm, this deck, man, it's quintessentially evocative. I can't ever quite seem to put this deck into words, and I feel that's because whilst I have a conscious experience with it, I'm actually going to leave this card out and come back to it later as well. It's a very, very emotional experience, and I really do feel like the artist has infused emotion throughout the deck, with the colours, with the faces, with the body movement. It's all very visceral, and it always comes out at this time of year. I use it with my fairy oracle, although I haven't got that to show with this because I use this lots and lots and lots and lots, where I only use the fairy oracle a couple of times. This has been very, very welcome. It's been really good for connecting to the emotional core and just stringing myself a little bit out of my consistent state of analysis, which has been really, really helpful. And whilst I know the artist is probably not going to have their new deck out until, I think it was it 2021? I don't think it's next year. I'm on the Facebook group. I do not like Facebook, but I have it for several groups. That's the only thing that I use it for now. And I've been watching her art pieces, and this new deck, which I can't remember, so it will pop up below in a second. It looks just as amazing. Maybe I'm biased because I really connect with the artwork, but I'm really excited to get that one. It's so far from what I've seen, there's no two ways about it. And I'm not looking to add too many decks to my collection nowadays ever. But there are a few that I'm very excited about in the coming couple of years, and that's definitely one of them. As you can see, I've got Prairie Dog on my altar. For the third time running, myself and the lovely Sarah of Itty Bitty Celtic Witch, who you can find on Instagram and Etsy, Patreon, YouTube. I'll link some of her connections below. Sarah and I create a a solstice or an equinox animal medicine challenge, and it stayed the same each time. So it's 3 prompts over however many days you want to stretch that out across. It's still open to join in if you would like to. Of course, here we've celebrated the autumn equinox now, but really this is to engage an animal medicine and really learn about them. So not just properties that may be more of a spiritual or a divinatory nature, but also to learn about that animal, because you know that I enjoy being educational and my work with animals is definitely twofold. To learn about their behaviour and their habitat and how they're a part of the ecosystem and all of those fabulous things, and then utilise the message and how it can be carried with you for the month. So whether you celebrated the autumn equinox or the spring, because obviously it depends where you are in the world, it was an animal to bring with you through the season. So of course it's still fall or spring, and there's still lots of time to do it. The one that I received, as you can see, was prairie dog, and it was quite a surprising one because, again, it's not an animal that I've worked with too often. One of the things that I took away was it felt very harvest-like to me. It did feel very connected to the season, and I do work with a wheel of the year. So it all connected very beautifully. The kind of returning to family, to burrows, the continued establishment of boundaries, and really some of the beautiful and quirky little behaviours that they have between their family or, you know, the group that they're living in. Really, really interesting. They do this yipping thing where it seems it's a behaviour for many different things, from greeting to alerting, but it's quite interesting. Is it yipping? I'm sure that's what it's called. They also do something which a lot of people have called kissing. I mean, that's a very humanised way to look at it. And when I described it, a few people said that it sounded a little scary. I thought it sounded adorable, but I think all animals are adorable. But it is interesting in terms of connection. And of course, connection is something that I have been thinking and desiring and actioning more so of late in various different capacities. So when they come and go, they do this kissing where they kind of lock their teeth. I think it's like a scent / touch exchange that goes on between them. It's really interesting. They like bare their teeth and lock them for a second, or however it's better described. So I know it sounds more terrifying than it is, but I thought that was really cute, and it didn't necessarily take me as deep into exploration as some of the previous solstice and equinox. They're all so different, and I don't know whether it's the animal that comes up or how I'm feeling, but it was all very relevant, all very poignant. I just didn't feel the need to find out every tiny bit of information, because everything that came through was so on point already and just so fascinating. I did learn a lot more than I already knew about them, which I appreciated. And also there's a really lovely depiction of prairie dog in both the Brady Tarot and the Animal Totem Tarot, which are two of the visuals that I utilised when I was exploring them further. I don't remember whether I've mentioned these already or not last month. I got these as a birthday present with my birthday money, but a lot of the presents that I bought myself were way past my birthday, just because I was being very thoughtful about what I wanted and where they came from. And I have finally dove into the Futhark runes. This book was recommended to me by the lovely Joanna, which many will know as Nomqua on YouTube and Instagram. She was so helpful. She's such a good friend and such a good sport. She looked at a lot of runes with me because I have to say, there are a lot of runes out there where the depictions feel a little careless, a little less conscious. They're not quite right. Of course, a lot of runes are handmade, but and it wasn't as easy for someone who is newer to know exactly what they're looking for, both in book and in terms of runes. This book's amazing. I'm still very much going through it. Some of the language is, of course, older, for want of a better term, and things like that, they always take me a couple of times to read them and truly sink into them. Now, I don't want it to be a rushed process because, of course, there's a few things that I've got going on in the background, but I am really, really enjoying it. And for the most part, I'm just keeping my practice private until I feel a little more familiar with it. But I bought these beautiful, beautiful handmade runes. I believe the wood's apple wood. And then they've kind of got, I thought it was a clear varnish, but it's not. It's actually almost got a little bit of a golden stain to the varnish. But I bought them off of a wonderful eBayer, and they're much more what I was looking for. I wanted something wooden. I also wanted something that wasn't too tiny, and they're brilliant. As I say, I cannot say much about it other than it was really interesting. My first rune pull, and I cannot remember the name of the rune, unfortunately, but it talked about ancestral magic, connection, lineage. It's not something that I often work with for various reasons, of which I won't bore you now, but it was a really interesting message. It was a really strong initial connection that I had. I did send it to Joanna and we had a really interesting discussion about it. I'm not familiar with quite significant aspects of my lineage, so I only have the hints, the stories and various things to go on. And of course I'm not in contact with a large portion of my family either, but it was just a very, very interesting first rune. And since then they've been nothing but on point. But of course, when learning something new, it's not necessarily as immediately intuitive until I've dipped into the book, and then the extra intuition and understanding starts to flow. But I'm really enjoying it, and Joanna is a saint for putting up with me and the various look at these runes and look at those runes, so I really appreciate her help. I'm going to share the beautiful gifts that I received throughout the month with you now, not in any particular order, and then I'll share the one, I guess, sad thing at the end. Hopefully not too sad for everyone else listening, more sad for me, and then I'm going to close up. But I really just wanted to show my thanks for these wonderful gifts that turned up, and that of course I have been using throughout the month, but they'll continue to be used, if that makes sense. Now, these wonderful things are witches' runes, which I didn't know anything about. They are hand-picked and hand-painted by the lovely Giselle, our very own Giselle Mad Witch. She printed me this, so it was nice and easy to jump straight into using them. How fabulous is this as well? All sort of burned and scroll-like. And I will not show you what's written on any of these personal letters, but it had this wonderful artwork on the front. It's by Jessica Hilton, and it's been up on one of my altar spaces ever since. It gives me all of the Froud vibes, and I feel that that's probably really unfair to Jessica because there's loads of people who draw fae artwork, but it did, of course, because I'm familiar with Froud, remind me of his artwork in a really, really good way. And so this beautiful bag as well, all handmade by Giselle. I mean, woman, you need to get yourself a shop. It's got this glorious earthy velvet inside, which I've probably never told anyone, but I'm obsessed with velvet. It feels amazing. And then she didn't know that fox was my main, I guess it's my longest working animal, if you wanted to call it my totem. It's the animal medicine that I've worked with and connected with for such a long time. And it's the first thing, of course, that popped out to me on this. She chose the material because she said it's kind of the earthiness and the animals reminded her of me, but didn't know about the fox, which is just super cool. We've got robins, which I have lots of in my garden. They love our garden. Our robins are really brazen, actually. It's got mushrooms of all kinds, fallen leaves, and then these gorgeous foxes. And I love them. I love them just as much as the Thuthark runes. Very different, of course. Found these ones easier to pick up just because I think that most of the symbols, these ones, they remind me of the words quicker, whereas the Thuthark is taking a little longer. But I'm equally enjoying both. And Giselle, get a shop. She really downplays her creations, and I totally get it. I am terrible for doing that myself, but I mean, I could not create something like this. I am more of a wordy person, but gorgeous. Really thankful for it. Love them. I received an anticipated wee gift from the lovely Maha. All of the people who have gifted me things who have a YouTube or an Instagram, I'm going to link them below just so that you can find out who they are if you don't know them and show them some beautiful love. Me and Maha were talking, and I was saying that I really loved feathers. I think on a video I had shown them, and she was asking would I like some feathers from her lovely pet Cheeky, and of course I said yes please. I'm not going to show you all of the note, but this is a lovely breakdown from Maha of the other things that she sent with as well. And we've got these gorgeous tiny rosebuds. I have opened these and then I've closed them. I need to get a bigger space to put my herbs and things like that, some more jars, but I don't buy jars. I wait until I finish jars of jam or whatever spreads, honey, etc., and then I repurpose them for keeping herbs in and stuff. But so excited to use these in my magical workings, in my tea. They are absolutely marvellous. How awesome is that? I mean, oh, there's a tiny little one flew out, and so this one's got a little bit of yellow on it. So all different kinds of feathers from Cheeky, and just such a cool thing. Next I have the adorably cute but very impactful animantras, and this was written and illustrated by the lovely Katie Welsh. This is Katie's very own creation, and I had been lusting after it for the longest time because I really enjoy chakra work, and actually this year I had fallen out of it mostly, but of course these are animals as well, so it's a double whammy for me. It's freaking adorable. Look, some of the keywords really surprised me as well in a really good way, and they still totally make sense. Katie has genuinely done her research when it comes to the animals, and of course you can see that the chakras are beautifully represented in these colours. Very easy to use, lots of ways to use it. This book, you guys, this book is in colour. It's so adorable. It's just a really, really well thought out, enjoyable, conscious creation that's very hardy, very easy to take around. And because Katie offered to send this to me, I only had to pay for which was not Katie's doing at all. It's just the good old UK with the usual taxes and customs fees if a gift is over a certain amount. But it meant that I could get this deck and not be paying out of my nose for it. I was so thankful to get the chance to get it because I've really wanted it for such a long time, and it's so much fun. I must use it on an Animal Monthly, maybe as an extra edition. I don't know. We'll see how that goes. But if you're interested in it, I'd really recommend it. I'm happy to review it at some point in a few more months. I've used it quite a lot already, but yeah, if you're interested, let me know. Last, but certainly not least, my lovely friend Siobhan, who is Willow Moon Witch on Instagram, sent me a beautiful care package as well. I'm not showing you the note, but look at the note paper. Adorable. Love, love, love. Now, I knew that she was going to be sending me this, which I will talk about at the end actually, and also in the cauldron just over here I've now got my dried bay leaves because she had loads of them. She was like, use them, let me know what you think, you're welcome to more. Since then my stepmum has said to me, oh my gosh, I've got loads of bay leaves as well. I said, well, I love the bay leaves, it's official, I have used them in a very personal spell, which I'm not going to share because it was just one of those just private moments I was having with myself, and also in a larger ritual. Now, what was also in this lovely package was the Halloween tarot. Yes, I have a copy. How late to the party am I? This is really fun. All I can say so far is I love that the kitty takes us through the whole entire deck, and that the cat actually adds a layer of storytelling based on its emotion, what it's up to, you know, when I say emotion, what its physical presence looks like. Occasionally its hair's standing on end. I also really resonated with what the creator had said about the deck. I don't have the large book, but I have the little white book for it, and it still gives a really good in-depth introduction about the creator's reasons for the deck and that connection to Halloween that was from, you know, when we were younger and costumes were really gaudy and clashy and outrageous, but really fun. I guess before Halloween, to me, felt overly sexualized. Now, if that's what you like to do on Halloween, that is totally fine. But for me, it wasn't like that when I was younger. Halloween wasn't about looking good in that way. It was about looking like the character. The blood, the gore. I mean, there's less of that in this, but I really liked that side because of my dad and all of the random weird dark things that we're into. But also the clashy oranges and purples and blacks and the cheap ghost costumes, the black paper bags. It's all really just good fun, very Rider-Waite-Smith, but not so much that it bores me, if that makes sense. This card really stuck out, and I was thinking to myself, why oh why would you put, I believe this is a French Bulldog, I can't remember. Why would you put them in this card? I mean, I know that there's a dog and a wolf in the traditional. Usually the dog's much more hound-like. Then I read about the creator and it's really quite sweet. I believe, at least when she wrote whatever I was reading, whether it was in the book or on a website somewhere, that they have 3 black cats, I think. So obviously the black cat is a representation of that. And that they actually have one of these dogs. So their dog's in there as well, which I would definitely do if this was my deck. And yeah, if you're fancying some Halloween themed readings and some of my other decks were too dark for you or maybe didn't feel Halloweeny enough, then this very fun, kitsch, playful, oh, this is me all day long, Wednesday Adam vibes, yes please. If you're looking for some of this deck is now in complete use for myself and clients because there was really no need to get to know it for too long before I was comfortable to use it with others. One of the other things that she sent me is my very first hagstone. It's really beautiful. The story of where she found this hagstone's written on the note, as well as the place that she found it. But she said to me that every witch deserves at least one hagstone, and I freaking adore it. It's awesome. The energy of it's really, really good. It's been moving around my altars. I have several of them, this being the only one that really stays because of course I have clients, muggle clients coming in and out. But it moves around and it's freaking awesome. That's my goodies. We're going to talk about the final thing, which was a bit of a difficult and sad way to end September. However, just as a caveat, I would add to you guys that on the very last day of September, my partner and I went away for a forest getaway, not too far from us, but far enough, and immersed ourselves in the forest and nature, and the amount of breathtaking one-to-one animal encounters that I had, wow. Because we went away on the very last day of September and it was mostly in October, I have saved it for October. But the animals were so trusting and so willing to engage with me that I was having face-to-face interactions with deer, and I had squirrels in our lodge and climbing up my legs. Honestly, it was awesome. And I feel like I'll give you that little cherry on top. Basically, I have a bit of a menagerie of pets, adopted, rescued. We've only bought one, if that makes sense, in terms of they weren't an adoption nor a rescue, but that's kind of how we ended up with as many animals that we had. So we've got the cat, we've got the leopard geckos, and I had giant African land snails. So I'm very aware, although I will be honest, if there's any insensitive comments below, I will just ignore them. I appreciate everyone's not into snails. You do you. I loved them. I only had one left. He was called Boney. I know that that's a really strange name for a snail. Their names actually went together. They were named based on a very old program that some of you, if you're old enough, will remember. It was called Trapdoor. It was a plasticine animated program that was freaking awesome. And they were named Drut, Rog and Boney. Boney was the only one left because he was much younger. Boney I also had from a wee babe, and obviously I'm showing you pictures hopefully at this stage. I had from a really, I mean before I took these pictures actually, because when he first came, he was too fragile to handle. It's amazing that they can grow hand size when they start off so tiny. And the person that had him, it was either that he get taken on or he end up being reptile food for some larger reptiles. So yeah, I saw that and I said, I'll introduce to my other two when he's big enough and not going to get crushed. Just a little addition, I appreciate that I'm calling him a he. Before anyone tells me, I know that snails can be both genders. Based on the characters they were named after, they were all called he. And so yeah, I had him from a tiny wee babe, and whilst to many people they just didn't really understand the connection, I have a connection with any animal that I have ever owned. Rats, you know, cats, whatever it is. And sadly, about 2 days before we were going away, I had been in talking to the person who comes and stays to look after the animals, and he was zooming around the top of, and they move very fast actually, zooming around the top of his enclosure. I got him out, he had a little bath, and then the next day I came in and sadly he had died, and very, very unexpectedly. You know, any animal death that's your pet that you have such a good connection to is always going to be really difficult. He was old for a snail-ish. I think for me it was more that it was unexpected. So that was really, really, really hard. And that's where my friend and this card come in. So this is a lovely cleansing wand. Is that a good name for them? For burning. This was created from my friend's very own hand. So these plants were grown in her garden. They were dried in her house. She strung them together and she sent them to me. And oh my gosh, it smells amazing. I haven't even been burning my older stuff yet because I wanted to use this for a moon ritual. I don't always do moon rituals, but I did do it because this came not long before and I was really keen to smell it. I am obsessed with lavender. I always have been since I was small. And so it brings back a lot of nostalgic feelings for me. So with all of my animals, we go through some kind of ritual, although I guess it's more maybe ritualistic now than it used to be, or maybe it's just that it wasn't as conscious, but actually ritual for death has always been really, really important to me and really, really healing. What I did is I waited about a day because I just needed that time to process. That may be weird for other people. That's what happened. And I set up a ritual in the room, and I actually held his shell and I used this to bless his shell and just give it those beautiful, soft, nostalgic vibes that this was giving me. I said a little piece and I pulled a card from the Tarot of Hidden Realms, and oh my gosh, you guys, this card had me in pieces. Try not to focus on the Six of Wands and where your mind goes, and if you allow yourself to look at the imagery. I was asking about letting go, really. It was just a strange card pull. I don't normally pull for the capacity in which I was pulling for. And this came through, and the colours and the way that she's released the feathers and they're dancing in the wind, and it all felt very, very relevant to allowing that release, allowing them to be gone and returning him to the earth. I took him through this little ritual, and what really hit me about this, and I did get the book out because I was curious, because the image spoke realms to me, but the Six of Wands, had someone have said that on their own, I would have not felt that way at all. Now, it wasn't purposefully done, but because I had waited, it was the dark moon, the evening that I buried him after I'd done the ritual, and this fucking book talks about the dark moon, and it was just so surreal. And I would say 80% of the text was relevant to my experience, and it just blew me away. So if you have the deck and you're curious, read the Six of Wands. It was just really, really fucking one of those powerful things that happens, and you're like, okay, I can't explain it, I don't need to, but it really, really just cemented something that helped me be able to go on and do the process. And as I say, I went on holiday after, and all of the animal engagement was just such a welcome, pleasant and blessed distraction. And finally, this cute little snail. My stepmum and my youngest brother came to visit me. I think it was the day before we went away. And I'll be honest, I wasn't feeling very people-y, but I didn't want to turn them away because it had already been arranged. And we went wandering down the charity shops and she came across this little snail and she bought it for me, which is such a lovely thing to do. I didn't know that she was buying it. She was just being all sketchy in a corner. I knew she was doing something she didn't want me to see. She's not as inconspicuous as she would like to believe, but I didn't know what it was. And it's been sitting on my, again, various parts of my altar, and just one of my animal energy focuses now when I work with snail. When I do any magical workings, it will be a part of it. So that's really beautiful. And finally, to end on a sweet, sweet note, because I completely forgot to include these, my dear friend India, the lovely Mama Hawk Visions, I believe, also sent me a birthday package. I don't have the top here. It's a top with a kitten with the David Bowie lightning bolt across its face. I mean, if you don't know me, then just know that that's very me. And also she sent this beautiful piece of what I believe to be aragonite. Am I pronouncing that correctly? Really, really lovely earthy crystal. And then, oh, it's in here. I've got my mala and then all of my larger crystal points, and she sent me this gorgeous smoky crystal point, which has now gone in here for when I'm using them. So thank you to everyone who spoiled me. Honestly, I really, really appreciate it. I know that I've said my thanks in private. As I say, aside from a very emotional ending, it was a much needed month. I'm hoping to continue on that much needed stability through October, which I've certainly felt and enjoyed some rejuvenating time, which I'll share with you next month. If you've got any questions about anything that I've shared, then feel free to comment below. Sorry if this was a little bit longer and ramblier than usual. If you want to look up my subscription or want to get a reading from me or anything like that, I'm really terrible at advertising myself. I feel a little uncomfortable doing it, but all of my details are in the bottom of my video bios and have been probably for several months now. So if you want anything, it's all there. And other than that, have a lovely October all, and I will catch you all again soon.